Hello friends, we are here again on my channel, The Bean and the Rose. My name is Brittany and I've got a recipe for you guys today. So today I am making barbacoa and I wanted to kind of share a recipe that I like to use that I've, kind of modified a little bit over the years. Mine of course is not going to be spicy because I have kids. And my kids will not eat something that is too spicy. So if you do like yours spicy, feel free to add in a couple of chipotle peppers to the broth when we make the sauce. That is the perfect time to add in something extra. So instead of adding in a chipotle pepper for mine, I am just using a little bit of chili powder. So it gives it a little bit of that smoky flavor still, but it's not going to be too spicy for my kids. So you can taper it to your spice level with powder or with peppers or however you want to do it. But for me, this is what I do for my family. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing you need to do is you get a chuck roast. So the one I have is just barely over 3.5 pounds. I use 3.5 pounds on average. I think that feeds my family for a couple of days. That way I can have a break on one day and I don't have to cook anything extra. So that's what we use. If you don't want to use it, you can always use smaller. You just kind of have to modify your sauce a little bit so it's not overpowering compared to the amount of meat that you have. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut this piece of meat into about 4 pieces because it is a larger cut. And then we're going to season it with salt and pepper. Alright, so here we've got 3 good sized pieces of meat. And then this one in here is a little bit odd shaped. You don't have to cut it. I'm thinking I am just to make it more even pieces. So you could leave it like this, but I'm just going to cut a little bit more on the edge. So mine's just going to be 4 regular sized pieces and 1 smaller piece. Now I leave the fat on mine. I don't mind having a little bit of fat. This really isn't too bad. There's a lot of really lean pieces in here. If you have a lot of fat and you don't like a lot of the fat, then definitely you can trim it, but I leave mine. So we're going to go ahead and season it with the salt and pepper. Now I use pink Himalayan salt. You can use sea salt. You just want to kind of have a coarser salt. It's my preference. Pink Himalayan salt, this one in particular I got at the Dollar Tree, so it's not as expensive as you would think. You can also get it in bulk in a finer, without a grinder, from Sprouts, and it's really inexpensive to get it that way as well. So I'm going to go ahead and use this, and I salt fairly liberally because not only for flavor, but this meat is thick, and so you're not necessarily going to get it. It's like trying to salt a steak, you're not going to be able to get everything all the way around. And I'm using tongs just so I don't have to keep washing my hands every time. Of course, at home in your own kitchen, doing your own thing, you probably don't need to because you can just wash your hands. Alright, and then you're going to go ahead and use black pepper. I just use regular. If you have a grinder, black pepper, that works too. That tends to be a little bit spicier for my kids. So I use this. It just seems a little bit like they notice it less. They don't bite into any you know, bigger pieces of peppercorns at any point. Not that it really should, because it's going to be cooking, you know, it's going to be a little bit, it's going to be shreddable, so it's definitely going to be like a long cooking time if you were to do it in a slow cooker. It's just because it's a pressure cooker that it cooks faster. But there we go. So that is ready. I like to let it sit a little bit, just to, you know, kind of get the salt and everything to get into the meat. So I will let that sit, and I will go ahead and tell you what I'm going to be putting in the sauce. So back over here, I've got 6 cloves of garlic and 1 onion. I cut the onion up just so it blends more evenly. You don't have to. You can just, it's all going to go in a blender, so you don't have to if you don't feel like it, but mine, I find, blends more evenly and a little bit faster when I cut my onion a little bit. You're also going to mix in 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and sorry guys, had to fix something for a sec. So you're going to, for your sauce, you're going to do the 6 cloves of garlic, the 1 onion. You're going to do a 1/4 cup of lime juice, 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and that's kind of more of a tenderizer. And then your spices. So for mine, I'm going to have about a tablespoon of cumin and about a tablespoon of oregano. And I'll probably do 2 to 3 teaspoons, so maybe a tablespoon, maybe under, on the chili powder. And then for the paprika, I actually just kind of sprinkle it in there a little bit. I'd say probably use a teaspoon or so of paprika. You can use a little bit more if you want to. And then I use a tablespoon of tomato paste. So I'm going to go ahead and get all that in my blender. I'm going to blend the sauce, and then I'm going to come back and show you the rest of the recipe. Okay, so now we have our sauce all blended up here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn this pressure cooker, and we're going to do saute. And so we're going to wait for it to heat up. You'll start to hear it sizzle in there. And at that point, you're going to take the meat and you brown it. Always brown your meat before you slow cook or before you pressure cook. It helps hold more juices in and gives it a much better flavor. You want it to be very evenly browned on all sides. So this we might have to do in a couple batches, okay, because there's just not a lot of space. So you'll go ahead and turn it on. It'll start to sizzle. You'll probably do 2 at a time. It'll take about 6 or 7 minutes probably to brown. And then you'll pull them out. Do the next 2. When those are done, pull them out. You can turn the saute off. And then we'll go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients in and start the pressure cooker. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a sec to warm up, and then I will show you guys after I've browned all the meat. Alright, we've got the meat browning in here, so I can fit about 2 of these pieces in here nicely. And then, so that it's not overcrowded, I will do this in 2 batches. If you guys have a smaller cut, you might be able to fit the whole thing in here, and then you can do it in 1 batch. But for me, I'm going to need to do 2. So this side is already browning up nicely. It already smells really good, and all this has is some salt and pepper on it. It smells yummy already. But yeah, you'll go ahead and do this on all sides, so even on these sides. Don't just flip it back and forth. You want to make sure you get it on all sides to help hold in all the juices and to give it that nice flavor. And then after that, we will go ahead and add everything else in. Alright, now that all of my meat is browned really nicely, I've turned the saute off. It's just, you know, from the heat it's still sizzling a little bit, but from here what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna get some beef broth, and you'll wanna get a cup to a cup and a half. Because mine is bigger, I'm using a cup and a half. So here's my beef broth, and you're gonna go ahead and just pour that in there. Then you're going to add the blended sauce that we did. We're going to go ahead and add that in here. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add 2 to 3 bay leaves depending on size. So I have like a whole one and a couple smaller half ones, so I will add those in. And then you just kind of want to give it a good mix, just to kind of blend it all together. You want to try and make sure that you get enough of the sauce on all the pieces of meat. You don't want any of them sticking out too far to where they're not going to be getting that delicious flavor. And then once you get it all mixed, you're going to turn on your pressure cooker. So we're going to get the lid on here. It beeps to let you know it's covered. You make sure that you have it on the off. Up here on the top here, you want to make sure that your valve is not, on the release. You want to make sure that it's going to seal. And then you will do the soup or stew. And you're going to want to do that for between an hour and hour and a half, depending on your cut. So I'm probably going to do mine for probably about 75 minutes on mine. Sorry, I went past it. Mine will only do an hour at a time. So I will do mine for an hour. The timer will go off, and then I will add another like 15 minutes to it. And then you just let it set. It'll start. And then when, like I said, mine, I will have to set the extra 15 minutes at the end. Some of them, like the Instant Pots, you can set whatever time you want, so it's a little bit easier. But once it's done, you can let it naturally release. But if you're in a hurry, you can always, flip the switch back here and release the pressure. But then as soon as it's done, all you've got to do is take out the bay leaves, shred it with a fork, and that's it. So I will come back and show you what it looks like when it is all done. All right, guys, I went ahead and let this naturally release, and here is the meat in the sauce. It smells so good. I'm not even super hungry right now, and I want to eat this because it smells so good. So here is the meat in here and all of the sauce. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take some forks, and look, it just falls apart. So you're going to go ahead and shred the meat. You can always take this out too if you have a harder time, like because it's in the pot, so you don't want to like burn yourself or anything. You can always take the meat chunks out and shred them on a plate and then put them back in as well. Whatever works for you. But I'm going to go ahead and shred up this meat. And then we're going to let it soak in all of these juices for about 10 minutes or so. Let it reabsorb back into the meat. And then you just serve it however you want. So let me go ahead and get the rest of this shredded. Alright, so here is all the meat all nicely shredded in here. This is what it's going to look like when you're done. And this is, like I said, really, really, really good with rice and beans, or you can put it over a salad. My husband and I, we eat ours. Sometimes we'll just use some meat and some, like almost chipotle style, some rice and beans and some spinach. And we just put this with some of the liquid on top, and then with cilantro and lime and some salsa. It's so good. You can put it in tacos. It's amazing in tacos. But it just, this will make your entire house smell so good. It's very aromatic, full of flavor. And like I said, that extra liquid that you have in here is so good over top of rice or over top of a salad. So I hope you guys try this recipe out, and I hope that you love it as much as I do. Remember, if you do like it more spicy, you can use chipotle peppers in yours. If even this with the chili powder is too spicy, you can always tone down the chili powder. But I think that this is a perfect spice for us. It's really not spicy. It just is more of a smoky flavor. So this is what I like to use. I hope you guys enjoyed watching and that you guys try it out at home and everybody in your family enjoys it too. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.